Welcome, audience, back to Diversitas. Diversitas is a podcast at the crossroads of diversity, business, and culture. Today, we have with us, it is a pleasure to have Dr. Tiffany Tucker with us today. She is the founder and CEO of, I'm going to mess this up because it's either Peds Purpose or Peds Purpose.
Peds Purpose.
Peds Purpose, all right. Dr. Tucker is a licensed pediatrician, thus Peds, seeks through her business and practice to provide pediatric services to children from a variety of different backgrounds and classes, but I think that she does have a heart for folks who are working class and otherwise. So with that introduction, welcome, Dr. Tucker.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that introduction. And thank you for having me on the podcast today.
Of course, I believe when we first started, when we said we're going to start doing stuff for Rittenhouse Strategies, we're going to do a newsletter, we're going to do this and that. I believe you were my first guest for the newsletter, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is that true in 2020?
That is correct. We were on a rooftop at one of the restaurants in the city.
Yes.
And we were talking, we had a nice lunch, and I think I was one of the first.
Yes. So we're coming full circle. Now we have upped our game and into the podcast game, and now welcome to this part of the experience. We appreciate
it. I have enjoyed watching the evolution, and I've seen some of your other podcasts. They've been great. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
You're too kind. I know you say that because you like me. In any event, so tell me about Peds Purpose. Tell me, what is it? What does it do?
Absolutely. Peds Purpose is my baby. It is a school-based telemedicine company. We have partnered with the Camden City School District. We partnered in 2019 as part of a pilot and a partnership between pediatricians like myself and school nurses. So I was looking for ways to reach our community, or in the community that I was in at the time was Camden. And I found that when patients would often come and see me with their parents, there were a lot of barriers for the families that I was taking care of, being transportation, financial, not being able to take off work when a child was sick unexpectedly. So I started looking at some ways that I could help address some of those barriers for families. And I had just started to look into telemedicine at that point. And I thought this would be an awesome way to reach families where they are when they can't get to me. And where do kids spend most of their time? At school. We have some amazing school nurses that are in our schools, and they may not always have the resources that they need or the backup that they would like, being the only provider in the school system. So I thought it was a great partnership. So I approached the Camden City School District to discuss this, and they were on board. The nurses were, happy about having the extra resources, and I think the families really were receptive to it. So we started in 2019, pre-pandemic, and started with 3 schools in Camden. And so with that, it's a true partnership with the nurse. The student may come down for any number of different ailments, and we will see them for routine pediatric problems. And when I say routine, I mean like ear pain, rash, maybe pink eye, things that really lend themselves well to a telemedicine visit. And I'm able to see them right from the nurse's office, with equipment or technology such as what we're on right now, a Zoom platform pretty much. And I'm able to diagnose things. I can see that child with certain equipment that I've provided to the nurses. I'm able to see an ear, which is quite cool. I'm able to see a skin rash. I can diagnose, treat, have a prescription sent electronically to the pharmacy of the parent's choice, and have that script waiting for the parent when they get off work. And that has allowed us to reach more families and provide additional services and increase access to care in some of the communities that may not have that greater in access.
So you were kind of like, if you weren't at the forefront, you certainly seem to be near the forefront of kind of advocating for this telemedicine model. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Now, others have done this. The only other program that I'm familiar with that looks similar, I believe, is one out of Cook Children's. But before I started looking into it, I hadn't heard of anybody else incorporating telemedicine in this way. I do think there was some pushback in the beginning among providers, whether or not this type of platform would allow us to maintain relationships with our parents and our patients, and whether or not we'd really be able to mimic or model that in-person visit. But I think that with the pandemic, COVID kind of like pushed us all in, ready or not, you're jumping headfirst into the deep end. But I really think that it is shown, we have all been shown how beneficial it is. And it is, I don't think it's going anywhere. Telemedicine is here to stay, and I'm happy about that, to be quite honest.
So was telemedicine always a part of the business plan for Peds Purpose, or was there some other way you were going about trying to treat children?
Telemedicine was not always a part of the plan. Actually, when I first started looking at ways to reach some of my families, I initially wanted to do a mobile unit. So have you seen some of those like RVs that are tricked out with office space for the doctors, like exam rooms? So that is what I wanted to do, and travel to different schools within the community, or maybe partner with some of the homeless shelters, or partner with the Department of Child and Family Services. So for maybe some of the teens or young people in transition who were taken out of their homes. So that was the initial plan. And maybe later on that will still be part of the plan. But then I came across telemedicine and I said, you know what, I can reach so many more schools at once, because if I'm in the unit, I can only be, or the provider that I have seeing kids that day can only be at one place. But with telemedicine, it's a hub and spokes model. So I am in one place and they can call in from all these different schools. And I thought, this is it. This is how I reach more children.
And how have the schools responded?
The schools responded, the response was great. So firstly, I was able to present to the nurses during their kind of professional development week before school started. And when I presented it to them, it was here's what I'm offering. Are you interested? And I will say a good 80% of the nurses that were in that room that day raised their hand and said they wanted to participate. I was also allowed, once I got approval from the Camden School Board, to attend some of the back to school nights. And so I was able to present at that point directly to the parents. So they were able to see the face behind the business and know that I was not somebody just coming in trying to push something on them. I really wanted them to see this as a partnership. And when I presented to the families, we had a stand in the lobby that allowed them to sign up afterwards. And we got a good number of parents who signed up their kids right there on the spot. So I think everybody saw the benefit and continue to see the benefit of this program.
So as you provide these services, I have a couple of questions related to that. But as you provide the services, how do you get paid? How does that work?
So payment is through billing a child's insurance, or billing the parent's insurance.
Okay.
And I will say that COVID helped with that too. There is a silver lining in all of this, that initially when I first started this, all of the payers were not on board. Everyone wasn't covering telemedicine. Now that COVID has happened, and again, the insurers have also seen the benefit, now everybody is covering telemedicine. So that is how we get paid. Now, I'm always looking for grant funds, of course, to help offset the cost of some of the things. I provide the equipment to the schools. The schools do not come out of pocket for that. So the equipment that the nurses are actually using, my company provides. So looking for different grants and resources to do that, so we can expand to more schools more quickly.
Right.
As far as the actual fee for the services, we bill insurance for that.
And so I'm assuming you maintain a presence in Jersey. Have you gone anyplace else?
I am starting to venture into Philadelphia, and I have formed a partnership with a wonderful facility or a nonprofit organization called the Philadelphia Mental Health Center. And they provide mental health services to students or children in inner city Philadelphia. They were already in the school systems providing some mental health and behavioral health services. So we have since partnered, and I will go into some of those schools to provide the same service to their clients.
So let's back up a little bit. How did you decide, or when did you decide, or tell me a little bit about your backstory in terms of how did you get from, you know, we bit to pediatrician? What took you into pediatrician?
Oh my goodness. I've been asked this question before. It was always pediatrics. It was always children. I knew from an early age that I wanted to be a doctor. And if you ask my parents, they'll say, since I, was this little, I was always saying I wanted to be a doctor. And I kind of gravitated towards children. Growing up, my grandmother was a foster mom, and my grandmother took in everyone and anyone in need. And a lot of times those were children. I saw a lot of children coming to us from abused homes. And so, I would grow up with these children that she was bringing in. They've become extended family. So I grew up watching caregivers. And so I just always knew I wanted to work with children, and wanting to be a doctor. When I did my peds rotation, that sealed it for me. I just kind of knew that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I have enjoyed it ever since. Haven't looked back, no regrets. I would choose pediatrics all over again.
Is it a challenging field to be in, to be a pediatrician? How's your experience been as a pediatrician?
I love it. It's a rewarding job, but it is challenging because we are unique in that we have more than one patient. We have the child and we have the parent. And sometimes both of those are happy. Sometimes both of those are mad at you, and you do the best you can, but it is very rewarding. There are way more pros than there are cons, and children are resilient. That's one of the things I love most about pediatrics. I've been in the ICUs and seen some of the sickest children that you could imagine recover and turn around. And by the time they leave, they're smiling and happy and joyful and hugging you like nothing happened. And you witnessed this child on death's door, mere a week ago. So I think that is one of the things I love about it. And I am constantly receiving, I would say, just reassurance and that I chose the right profession, because there's always something in my day that just makes me smile and gives me a feeling of fulfillment. So I love this profession.
So there's one thing to be a doctor. There's one thing to be a pediatrician. Excuse me, a pediatrician. But then you put on top of that being an entrepreneur. Tell me about how it's been to be an entrepreneur in this field.
I definitely required a different way of thinking and putting on a different hat, because prior to this, it was always just do whatever is necessary for the patient. And that is still my motto. That is still, how I gauge how I'm doing every single day. Now I'm looking at it from the business side of things, and it's how to deliver the best care affordably to our patients, making sure that everybody has access, and just finding unique ways to deliver that care. Before, I was always told or kind of trained that there's one way to do this. But now I know is from the entrepreneurial side of things, there are so many ways to deliver good care. And I am all about, at this point in my career, thinking outside the box. I want to find unique ways to meet patients and their families where they are. And so I think that's the biggest difference, that now I know it doesn't have to be one way, and it's not one size fits all. And we are going to tailor it to how our families need to be engaged. I think COVID really pulled the wool back on a lot of people, or I would say opened a lot of people's eyes, I should say, about the disparities that exist in healthcare that many of us already knew were there, but others who may not have wanted to acknowledge it or may not have realized what was going on now have no choice but to see, because it's in front of everybody. So one size does not fit all. And I am looking for ways to address the needs of those who are most vulnerable and those who need us to show up for them the most. And so as an entrepreneur, I'm able to do that. I'm able to design programs that I think that families want based on listening to their feedback. And I don't have to jump through a lot of bureaucratic hoops to do that, having my own business. So that's been rewarding, and I love that. And for me, there's no turning back now.
Okay. So, I mean, I will tell you that if I had to deal with insurance companies on a regular basis to get paid, I don't know whether I could do it. I might shoot myself. So how is that for you in terms of making, because that's your cash flow, right? So
Mhm.
how do you make sure that you get what you need to get from
So historically, there have been difficulties with as far as payment is concerned and certain things, but I have embraced the insurers in the sense that we all need to come to the table because our goal is supposed to be the same, to provide good care for patients and to make sure that they're getting what they need, So what I have done is I currently serve as on the executive board of the New Jersey AAP. And once a month, give or take, we have a call with the insurers and the main payers in New Jersey. And we talk to them about what we need. And we say, this is working, this is not working. CMS says you're supposed to be paying us at this rate for this. It's not happening. What is going on? And we have open dialogue. I think I'm not somebody that's just going to sit back and complain about it. I'm trying to find solutions, and I'm going to sit at the table with anybody I need to come up with those solutions. So putting myself in, or having myself be a part of an organization that really represents not only the pediatricians in New Jersey, but represents the families, has been a good way for me to affect change. And so anytime I see an issue or another pediatrician comes to me with an issue, when those calls come up, I am happy to bring up things that need to be changed. And payment comes up a lot. That's part of it. So I say I embrace it in the sense that I now speak up. Before I was just, one of those ones that may sit back and complain about what wasn't happening. Now I'm taking a more active role in trying to lead the charge of, changing our relationship with the insurers.
And how responsive are they?
They have been very responsive.
Okay.
They are not the big bad wolves that I once assumed that they were. So at least the people that they're sending to that meeting have been very responsive, and changes have been made as a result of those meetings. So that's been really good to see, especially since some of the pediatricians represented are from smaller practices as well, and not most of them aren't from our big academic institutions, who may have a lot more clout or a lot more pull. So when we get together as smaller groups representing some of the primary care providers in the state, it's really good because they have more of a voice. And so far, so good. They've been receptive to what we brought to the table.
Can you develop and grow a large pediatric practice outside of a university context?
I think it's much harder to do than it used to be. You see a lot of smaller practices, or just practices in general, being bought up by some of the academic institutions, because I think what ends up frustrating the providers is the payers. When you are waiting months and months to get paid for your patients and you don't have cash flow coming in, you have a staff that you have to worry about paying. So I think that is part of it. So can you grow it? I think you can. It just takes a little bit of creativity at times, and a good team, I think. And that's part of what I'm working on building, is a good, solid team. I'm learning to delegate because I know you can't do it all. And so I think the team that you surround yourself with is going to make or break the practice at this point. I don't see many solo practices growing as big as, they once did, given all of what we have to deal with.
Would you consider affiliating with a university?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you had any of those kind of conversations at all?
I'm going to be honest with you. I went to re-credential with one of the payers recently, and apparently during the pandemic, in 2020, I don't know which month this came down the pike, but now as a provider, you have to have admitting privileges or some sort of affiliation with a hospital system.
Oh, wow.
And that was not the case when I first credentialed with them in 2019. So I'm going to, I guess, look into the reasoning why, because there are hospitalists now that, take care of the patients in the hospital. So you don't see as many outside primary care providers managing their own patients in the hospital anymore. So I was not expecting that. So I am in the process of re-credentialing as an affiliate provider with Cooper again, for that very reason. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that just came about, and I've been doing that for the past 2 weeks.
Wow. So to that point, besides affiliate, I mean, obviously you have to affiliate with a university now, but besides affiliating with the university, what do you see as the pathway for growth for Peds Purpose?
As the pathway for growth, I see some strategic partnerships in the works to grow this business. So aside from just, of course, bringing on some amazing pediatricians to help with this and partnering with more school districts within the state, because right now we're just in Camden, but I would love to see Peds Purpose in every school in the state that wants to participate. You know, like I said, recruiting more providers, but then the other strategic partnerships that I'm looking at, New Jersey has an amazing collaboration with what's called the Pediatric Psychiatry Collaborative. So there aren't enough mental and behavioral health specialists in pediatrics. And so we have several hubs throughout the state where there are psychiatrists, psychologists, who almost act like consultants for the pediatricians. So with that partnership, I will be able to provide more mental and behavioral health services in the schools. So it's going to be fantastic, because unfortunately, with the lockdown and all the stress and strain of COVID, it has taken a serious toll on our children.
Mm-hmm.
On our teens in particular. I don't think anybody realized going in, because everyone was just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But what the mental health toll it was going to take on our kids. We have seen an increase in the suicide rate. We have seen just a lot of anxiety, depression, and that needs to be addressed. And so now I'm pivoting a little bit more to focus on that more than I was before. Because initially when I approached the schools, that was, you know, an offer there, but I was doing more medical, you know, acute sick visits, but now partnering with them to offer more of the mental and behavioral health side of it. So I see it growing in that way, because it's a need in everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I guess it's, I mean, I don't want to assume, but did you kind of see the opportunity because of the relationship with PMHC at all, or was it just because of this experience in New Jersey?
So I had experience with the Pediatric Psych Collaborative prior to even finding out about PMHC. So that was, I had seen the benefit of that during my time at Cooper, because they, I believe now, maybe 7 years or 8 years ago now, they got the grant to establish those hubs in Jersey. So I was already a part of something like that. And I'd already seen the benefit of being able to consult them and send children to them for evaluation. The PMHC just kind of solidified what we knew, is that we don't have enough mental health services for our youth, or providers that can provide that, which is why the pediatricians have taken a more active role in managing those things, or managing those conditions, because there aren't enough psychiatrists or psychologists to take care of them.
Mm. So in terms of business, and we can split it up into two, in terms of pediatrics and in terms of business and being an entrepreneur, have you identified role models that you look to for, you know, for support, for guidance, advice, etc., that you rely on?
So you know what? It's funny you should bring that up, because I was just talking to someone recently about the fact that I feel like I need to seek out more mentors in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I completed an MBA, a physician executive MBA, and I finished in 2020, and I had some amazing mentors as my professors. So I've kind of looked to them and for guidance and assistance. But as far as outside of that, anybody specifically in this space, no. But that is something that I will say, if anything that I need to do, is probably to get more mentors in this space to help me navigate some of these things that I'm coming across that have been unexpected, or now in this new landscape to help me navigate. So that is something that is on my to-do list.
Yeah, no, you have to, because I mean, it doesn't make any sense for you to repeat mistakes that other people have made. You need to have the benefit of their experience, their mistakes, which ultimately leads to their wisdom. So it's absolutely, I mean, I'm not saying this because I got a bunch of gray hair on my face. I'm saying it because it's true. I mean, I've had mentors in my professional experience that have helped me along the way, and candidly kept me out of trouble. So, you definitely should do that. There's no question about it. Is Peds Purpose certified at all?
Yes. What certification are we?
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it certified as a diverse business or a women-owned business?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
And
Within
have you
yes.
have you been able to utilize your certifications at all for the benefit of your business?
Yes, to some extent. I definitely want to do that much more than I have, because I know there's a lot more opportunity out there than I have tapped into. But yes, as part of the Chamber of Commerce for Southern New Jersey, I have been contacted several times when there's maybe grant funds or something that are out there, because they know that it's a women-owned business and a minority-owned business. So absolutely, I've been able to tap into some of that so far, which has been really helpful. But I know that there are other things that I haven't tapped into yet, because every time I talk to someone, they're like, this is an amazing business idea and you need to look into this. So
Yeah, I think that's important for you. And I think candidly, I think there's probably some opportunity there in the times that we find ourselves in, right? I don't know for certain, but I have to assume that that large medical, what am I saying? What would you call Penn Medicine, or what would you call like these not large networks?
Or large academic.
Yeah, I would assume that they have some kind of, or they should have some kind of, goals going on, some kind of something where they're trying to incorporate more, folks of color into their model. If you haven't looked into that, you probably should look into that. It has to be. And particularly with your background, with your training, and with the business idea, to me, it's a no-brainer to get behind it. So
sure, I will definitely look into it.
I know you can't do everything all at once, but you need to do that. Business development.
Yes, I am working more on, what do they say, working on the business instead of in the business, because I know that's how I grow it.
That's right.
And so I will say that during certain times during the pandemic, of course, when things got really busy and they really needed us as providers, I kind of put my own the business on the back burner just a bit, unfortunately, but patients needed us. So I was happy to show up to the ER and to the urgent care and do whatever I needed to do. Right. And now that things are, knock on wood, starting to settle just a bit, to kind of refocus and be able to do that again. And absolutely, I will take that into consideration.
Yeah. Business development gotta be for, I know you got, first of all, you gotta provide a good service. That's number one. But you have to look at the landscape to see where you're going to be able to bless people with your services. And
absolutely.
you got to get the word out. All right. So enough of that business stuff. Let's do some rapid fire questions. Give me one word that describes you.
Determined.
Tell me, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
When I thought about this question, it took me back to running track when I was in high school. And I remember coming to my coach one day and I said, Coach, the other runners, they're so much faster than me. They seem so much better than me. And he looked at me and said, Tiffany, run your own race. Don't worry about the person to the left or right of you. You run your own race. And that is something that I fall back on to this day. I don't look at or compare myself to anybody else. I try and focus on my God-given purpose. And I tell myself all the time, run your own race. Don't worry about them.
Can't worry about them. You can't, because that's not your path. Your path is your path.
Absolutely.
I completely agree with that. I will tell you that early in my professional career, I got caught up in that a lot. But it's not, you have your talents, you have your gifts, you have your opportunities, and that's what you focus on, and that's what you try to take advantage of at the end of the day. So that was tremendous advice. So give me a talent that you have that most people don't know about?
I don't know. That's a good one. You know what? Maybe double dutch.
Okay.
I used to be on a double dutch team when I was younger, and I think I'm still.
Oh, I can see you being on a double dutch team. I can actually see that.
First year as a team, there was a national double dutch championship. We actually placed third.
Is that right? Who was
Yes.
first? Who was first?
I don't remember who was first, but I'll tell you, my grandfather still has that third place trophy on his mantle at home.
So you're still earlier on in your career, but tell me what your biggest success has been thus far.
My biggest success thus far.
Doesn't have to be your career, just in life. What do you think your biggest success has been thus far?
I think staying the course and not giving up, no matter how many times I was quote unquote knocked down, to continue to get up. My path to medicine was not straight. There were times when I wanted to do it a certain way and it just did not work out that way. I wanted to go directly from undergrad to medical school and that just didn't happen. I will honestly, a moment of, complete honesty, I took the MCAT more than once and that was not my intention.
Hey, look, I'm right there with you, okay? So that's the way that works.
Absolutely. So every time there was an obstacle that could have taken me out of this, whether it was that or whether it was financially or whatever the case may be, I kept pushing through because I knew that this is what I was called to and I was not going to give up. So if my biggest success is not letting anything deter me on this path.
What about failure?
That's a good one too. And I hope this one doesn't come across the wrong way, but I will say that I don't consider myself to have biggest failures because to me, you fail when you give up. And I don't think that I failed. I think I've learned. And so I haven't given up. I refuse to give up. So I don't think that any of them were failures, anything that comes to mind for me.
All right, but I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. So give me something that you learned the most from.
Failing. I'm going to go to academics again.
Okay.
Oh, the first time you fail a class or have to take something over.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I will say I got to college. I went to Johns Hopkins. Hopkins was great, but Hopkins was tough. And I think I saw some grades my first year that I haven't seen since maybe fourth grade. Having to repeat a class was humbling, and I would consider that by all definitions, I guess, failure. But you go back at it and you try again, you study harder, you get a tutor, which I wasn't used to having either. All of those things to get it right.
I went to Carnegie Mellon, so I had the same experience, but instead of failing class, I would just drop it.
Oh.
I dropped multiple classes.
Well, those science courses you really can't get away from. So you either.
Well, you got to take them at some point.
Right.
But early on in semester, it ain't gonna happen for you.
It's not working.
I would definitely. Computer science classes were the thing, really. That I just hated it.
I made a beeline to academic or student services, whatever it was called. Said, sign me up. Give me somebody that can help me.
Yep.
And that was certainly helpful. I passed, and here we are.
What book has had the greatest impact on you?
I will share with you a book that I recently read that has been a tremendous help during this period of gaining some clarity in all the craziness we've been going through. And it's called The One Thing. I believe it's Gary Keller.
Okay.
And I have really enjoyed reading that book because it talks about honing in on the one thing that you want to prioritize. Because I have always been of the mindset of multitasking. You get that a lot in medicine. You need to be able to multitask. And this book completely blows that myth out of the water and tells you there is no way to do a million things perfectly. You have to focus on whatever that one thing is and do it to your best, and everything else will just add on to that. and you will be prosperous or successful, is the way the book describes it. And I have always just seen myself as a multitasker, and I am changing my perspective on that. And that I don't have to do a million things, and it is okay to take some things off your plate.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are only capable, and I talk about this all the time in the context of talking about bias and how bias works, and the fact that our brain can only process a certain amount of things, you know, at a particular period of time. But we have so much stuff inputting all the time, right? And at the same time we have all this stuff inputting, we're also trying to do all of these different things. It doesn't work at the end of the day. At some point, you just got to shut other stuff off and just focus on what that one thing is. So I get it. It's hard for me to do. It's actually starting to be easier to do simply because I understand my limitations, which are becoming more pronounced the older I get. So, you know, you gotta focus on what's important. Final question: favorite musical artist?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Okay, Luther Vandross.
Okay.
I've been called an old soul for as long as I can remember, but old school R&B all the way. And so when I think about what I can put on and just vibe to and do anything pretty much to, it's Luther.
Dr. Tiffany Tucker, thank you so much for your time today. I knew this was going to be great, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm not really supposed to say this, but I am a resource for you.
Thank you.
And I want to continue to be a resource for you as you continue to grow your business and be successful.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this platform for, you know, getting the word out about, you know, diversity, culture, and business. This has been great.
Awesome. She did a little plug for us. We didn't even have to ask her. And audience, thank you for being a part of our show. We look forward to continuing the discussion and keeping it going. Thanks again, and take care.